The last thing my father ever called me was poison. He said it in a church parking lot with my mother crying in the passenger seat, and my sister standing behind them with both hands over her mouth, pretending to be devastated. My parents believed I had blown up my sister's marriage out of jealousy. They believed I had sent her husband evidence, stirred up the divorce, and then lied about it with a straight face. My father told me not to come home, not to call, not to show my face around the family again. 5 years later, at 2:14 in the morning, he grabbed the front of my trauma jacket in the ER and begged me to save her life. He didn't realize who I was at first. Then I turned around. If you've ever had someone tell a lie about you that people wanted to believe, stay with me, because what happened after that was worse than the lie and better than the revenge I used to fantasize about in the shower at 3 in the morning. My name is Dr. Leah Mercer. I'm 33 years old, and I grew up in Springfield, Missouri, in a house where my older sister Savannah was sunlight and I was furniture. Savannah was 3 years older, loud in the effortless way some girls are, pretty in a way that made adults forgive her before she'd even done anything. She could walk into a room and make it feel like an event. I was the one who noticed when people needed refills, when bills were past due, when Mom's smile looked tired around the edges. My father, Dean Mercer, owned a heating and cooling company. My mother, Colleen, taught Sunday school and cared way too much what people at church thought of us. Savannah gave them status. I gave them good grades and no trouble. Guess which one got celebrated? By 14, I understood the family economy. Savannah brought excitement. I brought reliability. She got forgiven. I got expected. So I did what quiet girls do when being loved feels uncertain. I became useful. I studied harder. I stayed out of the way. I got into med school. I matched into a surgical residency in Kansas City. And for one brief season of my life, my parents looked at me like I might actually be someone worth bragging about. Then Savannah's marriage started cracking. She had married her high school boyfriend, Cole Bennett, at 26. They had a little girl named Harper with pink rain boots and a speech delay that made everybody around her lean in and listen harder. From the outside, Savannah had the life my mother wanted framed on a Christmas card. Nice husband. Pretty house. Cute daughter. Matching outfits. But the truth had started leaking long before anybody admitted it. Cole worked commercial roofing. He was steady, not flashy, the kind of man who folded laundry without being asked. Savannah hated steady. She liked attention. She liked being wanted. She liked the moment right before consequences. The summer I was chief resident, Mom had minor knee surgery, so I drove down to Springfield for 4 days to help out. On the second night, Savannah came into my old bedroom, shut the door, and sat on the edge of the bed like she was 16 again. I need you to tell me if this is bad, she said. That sentence never means anything good. She handed me her phone. There were texts. Hotel confirmations. A thread with a man saved as Tanya Pilates. That was very obviously not Tanya, and definitely not Pilates. I looked up at her. How long? 3 months. I remember staring at her because I genuinely thought she was about to cry and tell me she'd ended it. Instead she said, "If Cole asks, you don't know anything." I laughed once because I thought she was kidding. She wasn't. "Savannah," I said, "you have a daughter." She crossed her arms. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "That doctor voice where you act better than everyone." I handed the phone back. "I'm not covering for you." Her jaw tightened. "Nobody asked you to. That should have been the warning. Not the affair. Not even the lie yet. The warning was how fast she went cold when I wouldn't protect her." 2 nights later, everything detonated. Cole found a hotel charge on a joint card. There was screaming in their kitchen. A glass broke. Harper started crying. My mother drove over. My father followed. I got there 10 minutes later because Mom called me saying, "Your sister needs the family right now." The family. That word still gets under my skin. When I walked in, Savannah was on the sofa wrapped in a blanket like a victim in a made-for-TV movie. Cole was standing by the fireplace looking sick, not angry anymore, just finished. My parents turned when I came in, and I knew immediately something had shifted. Savannah pointed at me with shaking fingers. She told him. I actually looked behind me, like maybe another person had entered the room. Cole frowned. "What?" She's been obsessed with proving I'm a bad person for years, Savannah said, crying harder now. She sent him screenshots. She told him things from private conversations. She wanted this. I said her name once. Flat. Warning. She barreled right over it. She's always hated that I had a family first. She thinks because she's a surgeon she gets to sit in judgment over everybody. That's not what happened, I said. Then she said the part that made my mother gasp. And she's been acting strange for months. Cole told me she sounded medicated on the phone. I think the hospital's got her on something. I think that's why she's been so cruel. That was it. That was the hook she needed. Not just jealous. Unstable. My father's whole face changed. Cole tried to interrupt. Dean, hold on. But my father was already moving toward me. You told him? No. You expect me to believe that? Yes, I said. Because it's the truth. Savannah pulled her blanket tighter. Leah, stop. Please. You've done enough. The performance was incredible. I'll give her that. Trembling voice. Vetleches. Wounded dignity. She knew exactly how to make honesty look harsh and lies look fragile. Cole kept saying, that's not what I said. But he was talking to 4 people who had already chosen their story. My mother asked, are you taking something? I just stared at her. Not are you okay? Not what happened. Not is this true? Are you taking something? I said no. And even if I were, that wouldn't make her affair my fault. Silence. Savannah's head snapped up. See, she just admitted it. Cole swore under his breath. My father pointed at the door. Get out. I didn't move. He stepped closer. You wanted to destroy your sister because you couldn't stand seeing her happy. You did that. Not us. You, Dad. Don't call me that if this is who you are. My mother was crying. Savannah was crying. Harper was crying from the hallway. Cole looked like he wanted to say something, and then didn't. And maybe that was the part that hurt almost as much as what Savannah did. Somebody in that room knew the truth and still let me drown in the lie. I left without my overnight bag. My father texted me before I got to the highway. Don't come back until you can tell the truth. I called my mother that night. No answer. I called my father. Straight to voicemail. By morning, both numbers were blocked. I emailed. I sent one short message, then a longer one. I offered to show my phone records. I offered to talk in person. I offered, humiliatingly, to take a drug test, because when people decide you're unstable, innocence starts negotiating like guilt. No reply. 3 days later, a box arrived at my apartment in Kansas City. Inside were the birthday gifts I'd left for Harper, a sweater my mother had once knitted me, and the spare key to the house I grew up in. No note. That was when I understood it wasn't just that Savannah had lied. It was that my parents had been ready for a reason to believe the worst about me if believing it made their favorite child easier to love. So I did what I always do when something breaks and I can't fix it. I went back to work. Residency became fellowship. Fellowship became 2 years in St. Louis under the hardest trauma attending I've ever known. Dr. Elena Navarro, who once told me, when your personal life is on fire, use the heat. Don't let it use you. I slept in call rooms, ate protein bars for dinner, learned how to open a chest in under 60 seconds, and stopped checking my phone for a Missouri area code. I married Ben 2 years later in a courthouse with 6 people present, and my best friend Tasha crying harder than I did. I mailed invitations to my parents anyway. Not because I believed they'd come. Because I wanted no future version of them claiming they hadn't known. The envelopes came back unopened. Savannah didn't just let the lie stand. She fed it. A cousin told me she said I'd had a breakdown. An uncle heard I'd washed out of medicine. My mother told one neighbor I had chosen distance. Chosen. That word did almost as much damage as poison. Then came the night of the crash. Ice storm. 2 highways slick. 3 separate trauma alerts already in motion. Our backup attending stuck across town behind a jackknifed semi. I was the only trauma surgeon physically in the hospital. EMS rolled in a woman from a rollover on Highway 65. Mid-30s. Unrestrained. Pelvic instability. Suspected internal bleed. Blood pressure crashing. I was pulling on gloves when the paramedic rattled off the name. Savannah Bennett. For half a second, my body forgot which year it was. Then training took over. I disclosed the conflict to the charge nurse, had it documented, called anesthesia, called ortho, and stepped into trauma too. Savannah was gray, unconscious, hair matted with blood, one earring missing, oxygen hissing at her face. There was a deep cut across her forehead, and bruising blooming over her lower abdomen. The monitor was screaming. Her pressure was in the basement. Move, I said, and the room moved. Chest tube. Massive transfusion. Fast exam positive. Pelvis bound. Straight to the OR. I didn't think about church parking lots or returned wedding invitations. I thought about blood loss. I thought about clamping vessels. I thought about keeping a human being alive long enough to hate me later. That's the thing nobody understands about medicine until they see it up close. In the moment, the body erases the history. Tissue is tissue. Hemorrhage is hemorrhage. Oaths don't care who lied to you. We operated for just over 3 hours. A torn splenic artery. A liver laceration. Bleeding behind the pelvis that felt endless until it didn't. When we finally got control and her pressure held, the room exhaled all at once. One of the residents looked at me like she'd seen a ghost work. Maybe she had. Afterward, I scrubbed out, pulled off my cap, and stood alone in the hallway for a full 10 seconds before going to the family room. My parents were there. My mother looked smaller than I remembered. My father looked older in the way men do when life has been quietly charging interest for years. He stood up the second I walked in. "Doctor," he said, "is my daughter." Then he saw my face. I watched recognition hit him. It was almost disappointing how fast it happened. 5 years of absence, and still one look was enough. My mother made this broken sound in the back of her throat. "Leah." I kept my voice even. "Clinical. Clean. Savannah is out of surgery. She lost a lot of blood, but she's stable. The next 12 hours matter. She'll be in ICU." My father didn't say thank you right away. His mind was stuck somewhere else, trying to reconcile the daughter he'd cut out with the woman who had just kept his favorite child from dying. "You're here," he said, like I had materialized. "I work here." My mother took a shaky step toward me. "We thought." "I know what you thought." That stopped her. Behind me, the automatic doors hissed open again, and a familiar voice said, "Apparently not enough." We all turned. It was Cole. Older. Broader. Harper beside him now. 10 years old and clutching a stuffed rabbit under one arm. Eyes huge with fear. He looked at me first. "Is she alive?" "Yes," I said. "For now." He nodded once, swallowed, and turned to my parents. Colleen started crying again. "Cole, she said Leah was here. She said Leah operated on her." Cole looked between all of us, and something hard came over his face. "You mean the daughter you threw away, because Savannah lied?" Nobody answered. "Good." He set a hand on Harper's shoulder. "I'm only here because Savannah listed me as emergency contact for Harper. But since we're finally all in one room, let's stop pretending." My father stiffened. "This is not the time." Cole laughed, but there was nothing kind in it. "Actually, Dean, this is exactly the time. Because 5 years ago you never once asked me what happened. Not once." The room went dead silent. He kept going. "I found out about Savannah's affair on my own. Leah didn't tell me. Leah didn't send me anything. What I found were hotel charges, deleted messages, and a transfer out of Harper's college account. When I confronted Savannah, she blamed Leah because she knew you'd believe her." My mother shook her head like maybe if she did it hard enough the words would fall out. Cole reached into his coat pocket, pulled out his phone, and opened something. "I still have the message she sent me the next day. Want to hear it?" My father said nothing. Cole hit play. Savannah's voice filled the room, thin and frantic and unmistakable. "Please just let my parents think Leah started this. If they know I did this, I lose everybody. You know how they are with her. Just let it sit for a while. Please." My mother actually grabbed the back of a chair to stay upright. Cole stopped the audio. "I didn't play it back then because I wanted out. I wanted my daughter away from the chaos. I didn't care what story your family told itself as long as Harper was safe. But don't stand here tonight acting shocked that Leah became a surgeon. Shocked should have happened 5 years ago, when you decided one daughter's tears mattered more than the other one's truth. Harper looked up at me then, uncertain, remembering me just enough to hurt. Aunt Leah? That nearly did what my father never could. I knelt in front of her. Hey, Bug. She stared at me for a second, then threw her arms around my neck so hard my ID badge hit my chin. My mother started sobbing. My father sat down like his bones had given out. An hour later, when Savannah was awake enough to know where she was, I went in alone. She looked awful. Pale. Swollen. Tubes everywhere. For the first time in her life, there was no audience to work. Her eyes found mine. You saved me. Yes. She swallowed. Did they hear it? Yes. She closed her eyes. No denial. No performance. No second act. Just the quiet horror of a person discovering that the story that protected her had finally died. When she opened her eyes again, they filled, not theatrically this time. Just tired. I was supposed to be the one everyone needed, she whispered. Then you left and somehow you still became the one they talked about. There it was. Not some elaborate motive. Not a misunderstanding. Just envy with enough oxygen to become cruelty. You didn't just lie, I said. You let them erase me. She cried then. Real crying. Ugly and small. I know. I stood there a moment longer than I needed to. Then I said, when you're discharged, you're going to tell the truth to every person you poisoned against me. In writing. No excuses. No soft language. And if you ever use my name to clean up your mess again, you will never get close to me a second time. She nodded against the pillow, wincing from pain. Okay. I met with my parents 3 days later in a conference room off the ICU, because I was not doing that conversation in my home. My father looked wrecked. My mother looked worse. She started apologizing before the door shut. I let her. Then I let the silence sit on top of us, until it got heavy enough to be honest. Finally my father said, I thought I knew my family. I said no. You thought you knew your favorite version of it. That landed. I told them I wasn't interested in dramatic apologies. No crying in my driveway. No Bible verses. No speeches about blood. If they wanted a relationship with me, they could start with 3 things. Therapy. Consistency. And never asking me to pretend the last 5 years didn't happen. My father nodded like each word cost him something. Good. It should have. Savannah kept her promise. A week after she got home, she sent the email. All of it. The affair. The money. The lie. The audio. The smear campaign after. No blaming stress. No blaming me. Just facts. Do you know what really destroys a manipulative person? Not screaming. Not revenge. Documentation. Within a month, the family map had changed. Not dramatically. Real life almost never is. There were no grand public scenes. No one disowned Savannah. But the automatic trust she'd lived on? Gone. Every story she told after that had to stand on its own legs. Mine finally could too. 8 months later, on Thanksgiving, my parents came to my house for the first time. Ben smoked the turkey. Harper helped me frost a pie. Savannah didn't come. That was my call. And for once, everyone respected it. My mother asked before touching anything in my kitchen. My father offered to wash dishes and actually did it. Small things. Humble things. The kind of things that would have meant nothing to anybody else, and everything to me. At one point I walked back in from the patio and saw my father setting the table. He paused with a plate in his hand and looked up. How many? He asked. It shouldn't have mattered. But it did. Because growing up, nobody ever asked me that. They just assumed I'd fit wherever there was space left over. I looked at the table. At Ben. At Harper. At my mother drying her hands. At my father waiting instead of deciding. 5, I said. He nodded and set down the 5th plate carefully, like he understood for the first time that making room for someone and merely expecting them to stand nearby were not the same thing. I'm not going to tell you everything is fixed. It isn't. Some wounds close. Some just stop bleeding. My sister still has a scar across her abdomen from the night I saved her. I still have 5 years inside me that no surgery can take out. My parents are trying, and trying is not the same as undoing, but it's more than they gave me before. That's the truth. And if you're listening to this while carrying a lie someone else pinned to your name, hear me on this part. You do not need to destroy yourself begging people to see you clearly. Build a life so solid that when the truth finally arrives, it has somewhere to land. Mine did. It landed in an ER at 2 in the morning with blood on my shoes and my father learning, much too late, that the daughter he called Poison was the one who kept this family alive. If this story hit you anywhere real, tell me in the comments. Would you have opened the door again? Because I did. Not all the way. Just enough to make them knock first.